And I actually want to get into the MLS side of things. And I wish he was here to speak about Brendan Vasquez, because apparently Chivas Guadalajara is interested in getting Brandon Vasquez, but went on Transfer Market, the website, saw that he was only valued for $550K. They were willing to do that. And Cincinnati's like $5 million. And they were like, what are you talking about? $5 million. Transfer Market says $550K. That's insane that you'd have a professional club looking at Transfer Market, a website, to get valuations on players. I feel like there's got to be some other system behind the scenes that's going to give you a little bit better value or better understanding of what players value, especially in MLS moving forward. But there's one player in particular that really stood out for me. We hadn't had a chance we've had guests on recently, and shout out to Steve Cherundolo for coming on again yesterday for us, LAFC coach. But Aaron Long really stood out for me recently because they played the Colorado Rapids at home. He scored in this game. He's the captain of the Red Bulls. He's got a very young team on his hands. And we saw it against Austin FC not too long ago either. And when they played in the Open Cup, they have shipped a lot of goals. I believe they gave up 4 to Austin FC. Then they gave up 5 to Orlando. And they just gave up 5 to Colorado at home. And he's the captain. And that kind of troubles me a little bit as a former center back, Heath, because I know he's got a young team around him. And that's one of their strengths, but also can be as a weakness. They do high press a lot. But it's his job to keep shit together, man, to keep organized, to put people in good spots to put out fires before they start. And when you're giving up this many goals in consecutive games, it's not just on you, but because you're wearing the captain's armband, because of the position you have in the field, you got to lock that up. That's your job, is to worry more than just about yourself. Now, I'm excited he scored. I'm excited he looks like he's getting back to full health. And I'm coming in hard at him right here, but I have expectations. I don't, just because you have talent, if you can't organize your back line, I wouldn't play you in a World Cup, because that is going to carry over. It really will carry over. And yes, maybe that's easier. And I said this before, Heath, where sometimes it's easier to play for the national team because everybody's so good at their job. You really only have to worry about yourself. Sure, you can say a couple things, but guys are so intuitive and their IQ for the game is so high. You don't have to hold as many hands as you do at the club level, especially when you have a young team. But I'm not putting this all on him. It's not, but I think there's an element of it that he has to solve. So his game this particular weekend against a DC United team who just signed Christian Benteke, by the way. I don't know how much that's going to help him, but we can hope, fingers crossed, and hope that they can get it figured out. And that's obviously a good team to try to get it figured out. Anyway, that was a Jimmy Conrad podcast. Let's take it over.
No, look, I remember going back to a moment in my career that actually made it to where I ended up retiring and going to work with you at Kick TV, Jimmy, was I was at Gothenburg in Sweden, and got in there right preseason, playing really well. And then the season started, and I remember setting these goals. I had a great conversation with Jurgen Klinsmann about like, hey, I'm going back to Europe. I'm going for a try. I'm going to make a run of this, right? And this will make sense in a second. But what I went through during that period wasn't whether or not I could play at Gothenburg, who were a great team, a lot of good young players. It was realizing that I could no longer do the things that I knew I needed to do to get back to the national team level. Now, whether you get called up or not, that's different. But because I had gone through the injuries, my hip surgery and things like that, I knew physically I was at a point where I had to actively communicate my brain to my body to do things that would need to be done to play at a higher level. Now, you can get away with that at I think at times in MLS, and you can get away with that stuff, but not at the national team level, right? And so the hesitation to make decisions when you're not in the best of form or you don't fully trust your body is the difference as a defender of making plays, which you're paid to do. That's your job, is to just constantly make plays, to organize, make the game around you, but keep your team in games. And it seems like there's still that piece missing from him, is that true confidence of being fully unlocked, right? If you watch him, he's got the speed to recover. He's got the ability to make plays, but does he have that? Is his brain connected with his body and the confidence at a point where he can, without thinking, make the plays that need to be made? Because that at the international level ends in a goal. Maybe MLS, yeah, okay, you're getting scored on a bunch right now, but you're playing like any sort of league. You maybe get away with one or two. They don't finish the chances, or a mistake that happens, or whatever, you stay in games. But at the international level, if you have any of that hesitance, and it was a realization to me that I was like, okay, my goal was to get back to the national team. I've realized I cannot do that. My body, mind, everything was just like not working together anymore that could get me mentally to that level, that I feel like that part is still missing with him. And then you add that, Jimmy, to the fact that his team is giving up a lot of goals. Now, you've been in games, Jimmy, where your team ships 3 goals or ships 4 goals, and you're like, man, I literally thought I had a pretty good game. How has this happened, right? It's a set piece. It's a corner kick. It's in the run of play and a counterattack, or a bad turnover from your other center back leads to a goal. Like, there are those outlier situations that happen where you're like, man, I'm going to look really bad here, but I don't remember that really being the case. But when it happens over and over again, that's no longer an outlier, right? It's no longer this thing that happened in an isolated situation. It's a number of those things that there's just no way of avoiding, that you're being involved in. One, is the captain, and 2, organizing that to prevent those things from happening.
Okay, I just want to make a bit of an amendment here against the game, or Austin FC. The game ended 4-3 in favor of the Red Bulls, but he went off at halftime when they were up 2-1. Outside of that, though, he played the 90 minutes in the 5-1 loss to Orlando City. They were up 1-0. It's another thing about holding leads. Also against Colorado Rapids in the last game, he played all 90 minutes, and they were up 2-0. Then they were up 3-1, and they ended up losing 5-4. There's still an element of, okay, to your point, I might have played well, but I'm not raising the game of the guy around me. And I think that's a really important quality and attribute for a center back or any leader, right? It's not just him as a center back, also as captain. This is now somewhat becoming a theme for this particular club, who clearly have the talent. So what are they missing? What are they lacking? And so, yes, am I holding him to a higher standard? I think we have to, because we're thinking about this guy starting for us at the World Cup. And Greg Berhalter should be looking at him this critically as well. That's what I hope the expectation is that there is, and we know that he's fond of Aaron Long. We all want to see him come back and play well, but these are the intangibles that I think are going to determine the fine margins at the highest levels. Because Heath, you and I both know, you play against the best teams at the World Cup, right? You play them in big games. It's the fine margins that ultimately separate whether you win or lose, or get the draw when maybe you should have won. So these things need to be sorted out. And so that gives me a little bit of worry. And I just wanted to throw him out there as someone that I'm paying attention to, because if we're really,
sounds like you want to throw him right out there.
I'm not throwing, no, not out of the player pool. I'm just using him as an example of, just because maybe there are not as many eyes on MLS doesn't mean that you can't be held to a higher standard. All right.
No, I fully agree with you. I fully agree with you there.
The Timbers versus Dallas. You got Jesus Ferreira, Paul Arriola, Sebastian Lletget just got traded from New England Revolution to Dallas. He requested the move, and Bruce Arena allowed it to happen. Eric Williamson is another one who I think is a possibility, assuming like a Kellen Acosta or whatever gets hurt. So he needs to be sharp, but the outside chance that he can make it happen. Still bummed that he got hurt when he had a pretty good Gold Cup for us last summer. Let's go over to Scotland really quick, because you have Malik Tillman and James Sands hopefully getting the start for Rangers against Kilmarnock. That game is on at 10 a.m. Eastern on Saturday. It's not on TV that I can find. We got Ethan Horvath and Zach Steffen both playing in the championship, also at 10 a.m. Eastern on Saturday. Burnley Luton Town with Horvath will be on ESPN+. Zach Steffen one will be not. That's QPR versus Middlesbrough. Mark McKenzie, I want to get your thoughts on him taking Genk taking on Eupen, I think it's pronounced, in Belgium. And Gio Reyna, we already discussed. Let's see. There was one more that I wanted to. Oh, yeah, you got Cameron Carter-Vickers. So Cameron Carter-Vickers, Celtic going away to play Ross County. That game is also at 10 a.m. Eastern on Saturday. No TV that I can find.